Welcome to tonight's journey. We're stepping into a world where the walls of reality grow thin and things once thought to belong only in fairy tales hide just beyond your sight. Maybe you're curled up under your blankets or working late with a cup of tea beside you. Wherever you are, let my voice keep you company, carrying you gently back into the mists of hidden magic. If you enjoy this journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can follow us deeper into the cosmos. Picture this. You are standing at the edge of a primeval forest, in an age when the world was still young, when rivers ran wild and unshaped, and the night sky was a deep, unbroken ocean of stars. Humankind had not yet carved cities from stone or laid bricks into winding roads. There were no castles, no echoing corridors filled with the hurried footsteps of students, no wands carved from ebony or oak, polished until they gleamed in the torchlight. There were only people, the vast untamed wilderness, and forces that had no names yet. Before you, in a wide clearing, a fire crackles and sways with the wind. Sparks rise into the night like tiny wandering souls. Around the fire stand men and women dressed in animal hides, their skin painted in ochre and ash, necklaces strung with the teeth and claws of the hunt. Their eyes catch the firelight, reflecting it back in warm gold and cold silver. At the center stands an elder, hair long and silver, shoulders draped in the fur of a great wolf, eyes bright as if they were holding pieces of the moon. He carries no staff, no blade. Instead, he raises a bare, weathered hand into the air. With a single finger, he draws a slow curve, so deliberate it feels like time itself bends to watch. Immediately, a faint green shimmer trails his motion, coiling in the air like a living ribbon of light. The forest seems to inhale, the drum beats soften, even the fire leans toward him. Then, from nowhere, a strange wind stirs, cool against your skin, sharp with the scent of pine and smoke, fanning the flames higher, wrapping the circle of people in a living warmth. In this prehistoric age, they believe the shaman can call rain when the earth cracks with thirst, can calm storms when the harvest hangs in the balance, can heal the dying with only his voice and the symbols drawn into the night air. There is no written word here. All magic is memory, carried in stories told beside the fire, in dances beneath the round, patient moon. You hear the slow pulse of drums, the whisper of wind threading through branches, and the forest's quiet breath. For a moment, you feel it, a deep, unbreakable connection between humans and the living world, a bond older than stone, older than fear, older than history itself. Long before the idea of a wand ever took root in the minds of witches and wizards, magic moved through the world in its rawest form. It was not something you held in your hand, it was something you called from deep within yourself. In those earliest days, the air itself felt closer, heavier with possibility. Every breath seemed to carry a hint of power. Magic was instinctive, like running, like singing. It answered to gestures, to tone, to the fierce clarity of thought. In some places, it was shaped by chants and songs. In others, it flowed through symbols traced in the dirt, smoke, or water. There were no carved pieces of wood to channel it, no cause from phoenix or dragon to amplify it. The magic was already there, woven into the person, waiting for release. Across Africa, vast deserts and dense rainforests cradled some of the oldest magical traditions. Wandless magic was not a lesser art there, it was the foundation. Wizards learned to move power the way a hunter learns to track prey, with patience, with precision. They practiced slowing their breathing until they could feel the rhythm of their heartbeat match the earth beneath their feet. A transfiguration did not begin with a flick. It began with an image so vivid in the mind that it felt real before it became real. In the frozen north, where nights stretched endlessly and silence was as thick as the snow, magic workers listened to the wind for guidance. They would etch runes into the ice, let the snow fill them, and speak words that only carried meaning when exhaled into the frigid air. The sound would be swallowed instantly, but the intent lingered, curling around the world until the work was done. Rituals bound these early magics to the cycles of nature. A healing was never just a spell. It was a moment woven from herbs, firelight, and the voices of the community. A protection charm might be cast, not by one person, but by many, each walking the boundary of the village, with smoke drifting from bowls of smoldering leaves, their shadows long in the torchlight. These were not quick, hidden acts. They were slow, deliberate, seen and remembered by all. And those who could do such things rarely lived apart from the rest. They walked the same hunting paths, drank from the same river, built homes from the same timber, but they carried a second life, one that unfolded in the quiet hours, one that connected them to the unseen. They were healers, storytellers, prophets, and when needed, defenders. Yet, even in times of peace, magic's presence was never entirely without risk. Power draws attention, and attention can turn quickly. Respect can sour into suspicion. Awe can curdle into envy. A harvest saved from blight might be praised one year, but if storms ruin the crops the next, the very same hand could be blamed. The creatures of that age moved between the magical and muggle worlds without walls or borders. Dragons roamed mountain passes, their wings stirring avalanches with a single beat. In the spring, the largest of them would stretch across ridgelines like living bridges, their scales catching the sun and scattering it in shards of light across the valleys. Merfolk lived in the deepest parts of lakes and along rugged, unmarked stretches of coastline. To those who did not understand, their songs seemed like music carried on the current. To those who did, it was clear they were weaving intentions into every note. Some songs brought fish in from the open sea. Others could lure a lone boat into a fog so thick it would drift for days. Giants wandered the borderlands where forest met stone. In summer, they slept under the open sky, swatting away storms like insects. In winter, they carved dwellings into the sides of cliffs, their doorways tall enough for 3 men to walk through stacked atop one another. Not all were fierce. Many kept to themselves, tending wild gardens on mountain slopes, speaking to no one but the wind. These beings were not myths then. They were neighbors, sometimes feared, sometimes relied upon, always respected. They appeared in songs, carvings, and the memories of those who lived alongside them. The details changed with the teller, but the heart of the stories remained. A time when muggles and the magical shared the same earth, under the same sky, without the laws or the secrecy that would come later. It was an age when magic did not need to be hidden, because it was part of the world's breath, inseparable from life itself. And though that age has long since passed, you can still feel its echo if you listen closely, if you stand alone in a wild place, and the wind shifts, and you realize you are not entirely alone. But the world does not stay still. The same rivers that once carried the songs of merfolk began to carry ships with sails like teeth, their decks crowded with eyes that looked for power and feared what they did not understand. The same mountains that once echoed with dragon wings saw men arrive with steel and fire, and the same villages that had celebrated their healers and storytellers began, over time, to speak of them in whispers. It began slowly, as a shadow spreading over trust. The arrival of new beliefs, rigid, absolute, left little room for the unpredictable. Churches rose in stone and in influence, and their teachings told of a single truth, a single way. Anything outside that path was marked as dangerous. Rumor became a weapon sharper than any blade. A poor harvest, a sudden storm, a child's strange dream, any could be blamed on a neighbor's witchcraft. At first, it was suspicion, then it was accusation. Soon, it became law. Across Europe, the fires of the witch hunts lit the night for centuries. Trials were held in cold halls, where the accused stood alone before a crowd eager for certainty. Words twisted under fear's weight. Confessions, true or false, were pulled from lips by threat. by pain, by the promise of a quick death instead of a slow one. In 1692, far across the sea, the Salem witch trials turned an entire community inward against itself. Women, men, even children were condemned without proof, their names blackened forever. It was not the first time magic had been hunted, and it would not be the last. For the magical world, there was no mistaking the message. Survival meant invisibility. Families packed what they could carry and fled into the deep wilds. Forests so thick that sunlight barely reached the ground. Mountain passes, lost to snow for months at a time. Some crossed seas to lands where their names were unknown, where they could blend into the crowd. But hiding in plain sight was never enough. Spells grew in complexity, designed not to impress, but to conceal. Entire valleys were folded out of existence, hidden behind enchantments that blurred the mind of any muggle who came too near. Villages disappeared from maps, their lights visible only to those who knew the right path or the right words. It was during these desperate years that the International Confederation of Wizards convened. In 1689, and formally in 1692, they passed the International Statute of Secrecy, a binding law that drew a curtain between the magical and non-magical worlds. From then on, every dragon was to be relocated to hidden reserves. Every centaur herd, every merfolk city, every known magical plant or beast was to be placed beyond the reach of Muggle eyes. Wizards and witches learned to live in two realities at once, the one they shared with their kind, and the one they showed to everyone else. The cost of breaking that boundary was high, punishment from their own, exposure to the other. From that moment on, to the outside world, magic began to fade. What was once part of the rhythm of life became a bedtime story. Dragons became illustrations in old books. Spells became folklore. The magical world, for the first time in its history, truly began to belong to itself and to itself alone. Even hidden, the magical world could never erase itself completely. Like the scent of smoke that clings to cloth long after the fire is gone, traces of it remained, woven into the fabric of Muggle memory. In fairy tales whispered to children, a kindly old woman appears with a silver wand to grant impossible wishes. In darker stories, a shadowy figure curses a kingdom into sleep. These were not purely inventions. They were memories, softened and twisted by time, of witches and wizards who once walked openly in daylight. In stone and paint, hints linger still. In some cathedrals, high in the corners where few eyes wander, carved creatures crouch with knowing eyes, a dragon-scaled head, a centaur midstep. In villages, weathered tapestries carry patterns that mirror ancient runes, their meanings long forgotten by those who display them. There are places Muggles call cursed, where compasses spin without reason, where the air seems thick and heavy, and where travelers vanish from familiar paths. To magical folk, these are simply the borders of enchantments, sanctuaries for rare creatures, safe havens for wizard settlements, guarded against intrusion by spells older than the statute itself. Even the weather, at times, tells on them. A sudden fog blanketing one hill and leaving the next in clear sunlight. A thunderstorm splitting in two to skirt the edge of a certain town. Patterns too precise to be chance. And if you stand still in such a place, if you let the noise of the ordinary world fade, you may feel it, the faint, watchful presence of something just beyond sight. A ripple in the air, a prickle along the back of your neck. The sense that, though the magical world is hidden, it is never truly gone. That world, it never disappeared. It only chose to hide more carefully, to build its own laws, its own schools, and to guard secrets so deep that even many witches and wizards have no access to them. If you're ready, we will step quietly through that thin veil. On the other side lies a parallel civilization with its own government, its own education system, roaring Quidditch stadiums, and rooms without light in the Ministry of Magic, rooms that hold the mysteries of time, love, and death. The next part of our journey will take you into the very heart of that hidden world. Magic is not something you first learn from a book. It is not a skill you pick up in a class or a trick you memorize for a test. It is a part of you, deep down, sleeping quietly until the day it decides to wake. For those born with it, magic is as natural as breathing. It does not arrive with a bang. It appears in small, uncanny moments. Often it begins to stir between the ages of 7 and 11, years when a child's emotions run high, and the heart has not yet learned to hide what it feels. It shows itself in strange, flickering ways. A cup slides across a table toward a thirsty child's hand before anyone can touch it. A locked door springs open when a frightened boy needs to escape. A broken toy, once mourned, mends itself while a girl stares at it, tears still fresh on her cheeks. For families of Muggle heritage, these moments are confusing, sometimes frightening, sometimes wondrous. A parent may search for explanations in the ordinary world, never quite satisfied with what they find. Some choose to pretend it never happened. Others begin to look over their shoulder, waiting for the next impossible thing. In magical families, the first signs are often met with a smile or a knowing glance between parents. They understand that the spark has shown itself, that a life of learning and a lifetime of responsibility now lies ahead. When that spark appears, there is no turning it off. The challenge is not making the magic happen, but learning to guide it, to hold it steady, to shape it without letting it slip away or flare out of control. And for that, every witch or wizard, no matter their origin, needs one thing above all else: a wand. A wand is not merely a stick of carved wood. To the unknowing, it might look like nothing more than a slender branch, polished smooth, perhaps adorned with a few delicate carvings. But to those who understand, a wand is far more. It is a partner, a companion, and in some ways a witness to your life as a witch or wizard. Every wand is unique: its length, its flexibility, the grain of its wood, and most importantly, the magical core at its heart. Each element shapes its character. A unicorn hair core, for example, tends toward faithful, consistent magic. A phoenix feather can produce powerful, versatile results, though it may demand a certain boldness from its wielder. A dragon heartstring can channel formidable strength, but will often bond most deeply with those who are driven and determined. And yet, none of this is chosen by the wizard. The wand chooses you. In a wand maker's shop, hundreds of slender boxes lie stacked to the ceiling, each holding a wand in quiet anticipation. You may try several, each polite but silent. Then, at last, one rests in your hand and something shifts. It might be a sudden warmth spreading through your palm, a soft vibration in your fingertips, or a faint hum in the air, as though the wand itself has drawn a deep breath. That is the moment of recognition, not just yours, but the wand's. In that instant, it knows you as its own. From then on, you will grow together. A wand learns from its master, your rhythms, your strengths, the way you think and move. It begins to anticipate you, to answer your intent even before you've finished forming the thought, and in turn, you will learn from it. You'll discover that some spells seem to flow effortlessly, as if the wand delights in them, while others resist, requiring patience, practice, or perhaps a change in approach. The bond is powerful, but it is not unbreakable. A wand can be taken, lost, or broken. In some rare and complicated circumstances, a wand may change its allegiance, accepting a new master after a decisive act, such as defeating its previous owner in a duel. Yet even then, the match is rarely as harmonious as the first true pairing. Using another's wand is like wearing their clothes, possible, but never a perfect fit. The magic may falter, hesitate, or emerge with unexpected quirks. The most skilled witches and wizards can adapt, but even they know it is never the same. To carry a wand is to enter into a kind of unspoken agreement. It will amplify your will, but it will also reflect who you are. Some believe a wand can judge, not in words, but in subtle ways. A hesitation in a duel, a spell that sputters when your intent wavers, a sudden surge when your heart is clear. A wand is with you in triumph and in failure. It bears witness to the quiet moments of practice and the high stakes of battle. It will see things no one else sees and go where no one else can follow. And so every witch or wizard learns a simple truth. You may own a wand, but in the end, you never truly own it alone. Magic is not a single path. It is a sprawling, many-chambered castle with corridors that twist into entirely different worlds. Each branch of magic is its own doorway, opening onto a place where the rules shift, the tools change, and even the way you think must adapt. Some of these branches are bright and welcoming, others are shadowed, their thresholds crossed with caution. All require respect, for each holds power that can shape, heal, or harm. Charms. Charms are often the first magic a young witch or wizard learns to shape. They do not change the nature of a thing, rather they enhance it, alter its behavior, or awaken hidden properties. A chair remains a chair, but with the right charm, it might slide across the floor to meet you, or lift itself into the air like a faithful pet. A feather remains a feather, but under the spell, Wingardium Leviosa, it drifts upward, spinning lazily in the air. The magic of charms often feels light-hearted, almost playful. Lumos for light, Alohomora for unlocking doors, Accio for summoning an object from across a room. But do not mistake them for trivial. The right charm, cast at the right moment, can change the course of a battle or save a life. Charms are about possibility, about taking what exists and asking, what else could this be? Transfiguration. If charms are about possibility, transfiguration is about transformation. It is a stricter, more demanding art, less forgiving of carelessness. A skilled transfiguration can turn a teacup into a toad, or a beetle into a button. But this is not mere illusion. The change is real, in substance as well as form. The complexity lies in control. Every detail must be considered, from weight to texture to behavior. There are laws here, and they are unbreakable. Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration states that certain things cannot be conjured from nothing. Food, for instance, cannot be created, only summoned or multiplied from what already exists. Other exceptions are closely guarded, known in detail only to advanced practitioners. To learn transfiguration is to learn discipline. A half-finished spell can leave an object trapped between forms, something neither one thing nor the other, unsettling to the eye and dangerous to touch. Potions. Potions are magic in liquid form, a slow, deliberate craft that tests a witch or wizard's patience as much as their skill. They are brewed over hours, days, sometimes months, each ingredient prepared with care. The cut of a root, the number of stirs, the timing of a single drop of essence, all can mean the difference between a potion that heals and one that harms. Some potions are gentle, a calming draught for restless sleep, a pepper-up potion to chase away a cold. Others are dangerous, polyjuice potion, allowing one to take on another's appearance, or amortentia, the most powerful love potion known, with a scent that changes to match the drinker's deepest desires. The potions classroom is a place apart, cool, dim, the air thick with scents, both sharp and sweet. Bottles line the shelves, their contents shifting or glimmering in the light, and somewhere in the background, a cauldron always bubbles. Potions reward precision, but they also punish carelessness. A single wrong measure can turn medicine into poison. The dark arts. The dark arts are the most feared and forbidden branch of magic. They are magic bent toward harm, control, and destruction. Spells designed not to create, but to take away. There are curses that cripple, hexes that humiliate, and enchantments that corrupt the mind. At the farthest edge lie the unforgivable curses, the cruciatus, inflicting unbearable pain, the imperious, stealing free will, and the killing curse, ending life in an instant. The danger of the dark arts lies not only in their effects, but in their pull. They promise quick results, decisive outcomes, but every use leaves a mark on the victim and the caster alike. The more you turn to them, the easier it becomes to do so again. Laws against their use are strict. Those caught practicing them without sanction face prison in Azkaban, a fate feared by even the most hardened wizards. Care of magical creatures, magizoology. To study magical creatures is to step into a world of wonder and caution. Some are magnificent and gentle, hippogriffs, who require a bow before they will let you touch them, unicorns, whose silvery blood glows in the moonlight. Others are dangerous even to the experienced acromantulas, with venomous fangs, dragons whose breath can turn stone to slag. A magizoologist learns to read the signs, a twitch of the tail, the tilt of a head, that speak of mood and intent. They learn where to approach, when to retreat, and how to care for creatures without taming them into something they are not. The lessons are as much about respect as they are about knowledge. Magical creatures do not exist to serve. They exist alongside, each with a place in the larger web of the magical world. Divination. Divination is the attempt to see beyond the veil of the present, to glimpse what has not yet happened or what is happening far away. Its methods are varied, reading the shapes left by tea leaves at the bottom of a cup, gazing into the depths of a crystal ball, casting and interpreting runes. Some practitioners claim accuracy, others admit that the future is fluid, shifting even as it is glimpsed. Skeptics abound. There are those who dismiss divination as guesswork wrapped in ritual, pointing to its vagueness and the ease with which predictions can be shaped to fit events after the fact. And yet, in certain rare moments, a prophecy will ring so true, so unshakable, that even the doubters fall silent. Each branch of magic is a different kind of conversation with the world. Some are light and playful, others are solemn, even dangerous. All demand study, respect, and the humility to know that no witch or wizard can master them all completely. To walk among these branches is to choose, over and over, which door you will open next, and to understand that each choice shapes the kind of wizard you will become. Imagine Hogwarts, not as a fortress, but as an ancient garden. Its stone towers are old trees, its corridors winding paths. Each classroom is a hidden clearing, and each subject is a rare bloom, with its own fragrance and its own guardians. The charms classroom is bright and lively, sunlight catching on floating objects. There is laughter here, the thrill of something hovering for the first time. The Transfiguration classroom changes every time you enter. One day the desks are ordinary wood, the next they are gleaming marble or shaped like animals that twitch their ears when you pass. The potions dungeon is cool and shadowed, lined with shelves where bottles glow faintly in the dim light. The air is thick with scents that are impossible to name, and the quiet is broken only by the soft bubble of a simmering cauldron. Care of magical creatures takes place under open skies, where you might feel the rush of a hippogriff's wings or hear the chatter of bowtruckles in the trees. The divination classroom is warm and misty, scented with tea and incense. Curtains dim the daylight to a perpetual twilight, and every surface is cluttered with cups, cards, and gleaming orbs. Each of these places is a gate. When you cross its threshold, you step into a different kind of power, one that asks for its own skills, its own mindset. To walk the grounds of Hogwarts is to wander a garden where magic grows in every direction, and to choose again and again which paths to follow. There are some roads that once taken, you can never return from. The wizarding world is one of them. Imagine you are walking through the busy streets of London, the rumble of buses in your ears, the smell of rain on stone. You pass a narrow side alley, nothing remarkable to anyone else, but something draws you toward it. You step into the shadows, and for a moment, the noise fades. Ahead is a wall of old brick, warm from the sun, and then it moves. A seam opens where there should be none. The bricks twist, shift, and fold inward like petals of a stone flower. Beyond is light, but not the yellow-grey of city daylight. This is a warmer glow, flickering, alive. When you step through, the air changes. The sounds of the Muggle world vanish behind you. Somewhere, a raven calls. The voices you hear are speaking words you don't understand, yet somehow you know they are spells. Shop signs shimmer faintly. Robes brush past you, their hems whispering over cobblestones, older than the street you just left. This is not just a different street, it is a different world. And though the entrance might still be behind you, you feel the weight of the choice you've made. From this moment on, you carry a secret you can never share with those you left outside. Because the wizarding world is not a hidden corner, it is a full civilization living behind an invisible curtain. And once you have stepped through that curtain, there is no way to return unchanged. Far beneath the streets of London, hidden behind layers of spells and secrecy, lies the beating heart of magical Britain, the Ministry of Magic. To most Muggles, the ground above it is nothing more than a web of roads, offices, and train lines. But to those who know how to find it, the Ministry is an entire city of its own, operating in the shadows to govern a world the rest of humanity cannot see. Its first and most sacred duty is clear: to keep the wizarding world hidden from Muggle eyes. Every law, every department, every rushed midnight meeting ultimately circles back to that single purpose. A Quidditch match that gets too noisy, a dragon sighted in the hills, a child casting magic in a Muggle playground. These are not mere inconveniences, they are breaches in the wall between worlds, and the Ministry exists to make sure that wall never falls. The journey to the Ministry begins in places most would overlook. You might step into a battered red telephone booth, dial a certain number, and feel the floor sink away beneath you. You might walk into a shabby public lavatory, and with the right twist of magic, find yourself somewhere entirely different. Or you might simply step through a fireplace, green flames swirling around you, to arrive in the Ministry's atrium. The atrium is breathtaking, a long, polished hall with a ceiling enchanted to resemble the sky, light spilling down in shifting hues. Dozens of fireplaces line the walls, each sparking with arrivals and departures. In the center, the Fountain of Magical Brethren rises from a pool, its bronze figures, witch, wizard, centaur, goblin, and house elf, glistening in the glow. Coins clink softly into the water, tossed by those who pass, the proceeds going to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. From this central space, corridors and lifts lead to the Ministry SEP's many departments. The Department of Magical Law Enforcement, the largest branch, home to the Aurora Office, the Misuse of Magic Office, and the Improper Use of Magic Patrol. It is here that dark wizards are hunted, dangerous magic contained, and laws enforced. The Department of International Magical Cooperation manages treaties, coordinates global magical law, and hosts the International Magical Office of Law. The Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes, first responders to magical disasters. Their obliviators erase dangerous memories from Muggle minds, while their damage reversal squad repairs what magic has broken. The Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures oversees all magical beings and beasts, from the harmless to the highly dangerous. The Department of Magical Transportation keeps the flu network running, regulates broomstick travel, issues apparition licenses, and maintains portkey safety. The Department of Mysteries, the most secretive branch, researching the deep, unanswerable forces of the universe. Time, death, love, space, and thought. Few who enter speak of what they see there. The Ministry is not without politics or conflict. Its corridors echo with hurried footsteps, whispered deals, and the occasional raised voice behind closed doors. But for all its flaws, it is the guardian of the fragile balance between the magical and non-magical worlds. Without it, the statute of secrecy would crumble, and the wizarding world would stand exposed to a gaze it might not survive. Here in these underground halls, The fate of magical Britain is decided, day after day, far from the light, but always in its shadow. The Ministry of Magic governs Britain, but the wizarding world does not end at its shores. Across continents, witches and wizards live in hidden communities, each with its own government, customs, and challenges. To link them, however tenuously, exists the International Confederation of Wizards. The Confederation is the closest thing the magical world has to a global council. It meets rarely, and only when the stakes demand it, disputes between nations, the regulation of dangerous magical creatures, the establishment of international law. When it convenes, its chambers are a gathering unlike any other. Cloaked figures from dozens of countries fill the seats, speaking in a chorus of accents and languages. Not all are human. Delegations from goblin enclaves, merfolk kingdoms, and centaur herds may attend, their presence a reminder that the magical world is broader and more varied than most imagine. Its most consequential act came in a time of fear and fire. The late 17th century was a dangerous age for witches and wizards. Across Europe and the Americas, the witch hunts raged. Torches lit the night. Rumors traveled faster than truth. A sudden illness, a poor harvest, a storm at sea, any misfortune could be blamed on magic. Trials were held in crowded courts, where evidence mattered less than the swelling of fear. In the American colonies, the Salem witch trials of 1692 became infamous, neighbors turning on neighbors, false confessions wrung out by threats and pain. But Salem was only the loudest chapter in a much longer and darker story. Magical families in every land lived under constant threat, never certain who might betray them. In 1689, the International Confederation of Wizards called an emergency summit. The debates stretched on for months, carried out in secrecy and shadow. By its end, the delegates had agreed to something unprecedented, the International Statute of Secrecy. The statute was more than a law. It was a dividing line. It required that all magical communities withdraw from open contact with muggles. Magical creatures be hidden or relocated to concealed reserves. Magical settlements be concealed through enchantment or misdirection. All breaches of secrecy be contained immediately, with muggle witnesses having their memories altered. From the day it was enacted in 1692, the statute reshaped wizarding life. Entire villages were cloaked in invisibility. Magical markets moved behind walls, only accessible to those who knew the way. Quidditch games were relocated to remote valleys and hidden stadiums. Dragons were driven into protected territories, guarded by spells that turned muggle eyes away. The statute was meant to protect, and it did. The fires of the witch hunts faded when there were no witches left to find, but protection came at a price. For many, the separation from muggle friends and neighbors was like a slow exile. Children who had once played together were suddenly forbidden to meet. Stories and traditions that had flowed freely between worlds dried up into myth and rumor. Generations later, the statute still holds. It is the reason the magical world endures unseen, and the reason a witch walking through a crowded muggle street must keep her wand hidden beneath her cloak. It is the veil between two civilizations, thin enough to step through, thick enough to keep them forever apart. When the statute of secrecy settled over the world like an invisible shroud, wizarding society began to change. Cut off from open contact with muggles, magical communities turned inward, building their own rhythms, traditions, and hierarchies. Life continued much as before, but now it moved in quiet, hidden lanes, lit by lanterns no muggle would ever see. One of the most persistent features of this enclosed world is the idea of blood status. Pure blood families, able to trace magical ancestry through both parents for generations, often carry a fierce sense of pride, and in some cases, prejudice. Half-bloods, born to one magical and one non-magical parent, occupy a middle space, sometimes welcomed, sometimes eyed with caution. Muggle-born witches and wizards, whose powers manifest despite non-magical lineage, can face the cold edge of suspicion, especially from those who see their arrival as a dilution of tradition. And then there are squibs, non-magical children born to magical parents, who often feel the sting of being outsiders in both worlds. These distinctions hold no place in official ministry law, yet they shape the unspoken rules of society. Marriages, business partnerships, and even school friendships can be colored by the weight of ancestry. Within these walls, the magical world thrives in its own way. The Daily Prophet delivers news, ministry decrees, and the occasional sensational headline, its moving photographs whispering life into every page. Sport is dominated by Quidditch, with matches ranging from casual village games to the roaring spectacle of the World Cup. Cultural life blooms in forms uniquely magical, wizarding theatre, with sets that rearrange themselves mid-performance, music played on instruments that float and dance in the air, books that turn their own pages to the choicest passages. The economy runs on wizarding currency, galleons of gold, sickles of silver, and nuts of bronze, minted and charmed by goblins in the marble halls of Gringotts Bank. Beneath its vaulted ceilings, goblins guard wealth and secrets with equal intensity, their ledgers written in languages few outside their kind can read. Markets are the lifeblood of magical towns. Diagon Alley is the most famous in Britain, a place where you can buy a cauldron that stirs itself, a book that whispers its contents to you, or a cloak woven from the hair of a demiguise, rendering the wearer near invisible. Yet to Muggle eyes, such a street would be nothing more than an abandoned row of shops, or perhaps nothing at all, the entire space folded away behind enchantment. This concealment is constant, not a choice, but a condition of life. A wizard's home might be hidden within a row of terraced houses, its windows charmed to look like brick. A Quidditch stadium, full to bursting with cheering fans, might appear to an overflying plane as nothing but a stretch of farmland. Under the curtain, wizarding life is vibrant, strange and wholly its own, but always aware of the wall that surrounds it. Every market stall, every sporting match, every enchanted performance unfolds in a world that knows it must keep its own heartbeat quiet, lest the sound carry across to the other side. For those born into magical families, the Muggle world is a distant curiosity, a place glimpsed from behind the safety of enchantments. Some regard it with fascination, others with mild contempt, but few feel its absence. For Muggle-born witches and wizards, the divide is far sharper. At first, discovering the wizarding world feels like stepping into a dream. Corridors that shift beneath your feet, portraits that talk back, a night sky alive with broomstick trails. Every impossible thing suddenly possible. But as the years pass, the gulf between the two halves of your life widens. Old friends ask where you go each term. You invent answers. Family smiles at your stories, but their eyes search for a way to believe them. Slowly, the language of your childhood, its references, its rhythms, no longer fits. You begin to carry a part of yourself that no one in your old world can see, much less understand. For pure-blood witches and wizards, the experience can be just as isolating in reverse. The Muggle world, with its humming wires and endless roads, can feel alien, even hostile. Some never cross into it at all. The Statute of Secrecy protects both worlds, but it also seals them apart. It is a wall that keeps danger out, but also keeps connection from flowing in. And once you've crossed it, there is no easy way back. For some, that separation is a comfort, a home where you are wholly understood. For others, it is a bittersweet exile, loved for what it gives, mourned for what it takes away. In the end, living between two worlds means carrying the weight of both and knowing that neither will ever fully see the other. The day begins in mist. From the far hills, Hogwarts rises like something from a dream, its towers softened by the pale light of morning, its stone walls wrapped in silver fog. The first rays of sun touch the highest turrets, glinting faintly on the slate rooftops, still wet from the night's dew. In the courtyards below, The cobblestones are cold beneath the feet of early risers. The sound of footsteps echoes faintly in the still air, accompanied by the caw of distant ravens. A bell tolls, its voice rolling out over the lake and into the shadowed forest beyond. Inside, the castle breathes in its own quiet rhythm. Fires in the common rooms have burned low through the night, glowing softly behind the iron grates. Portraits along the staircases murmur to one another, their painted eyes following the shuffle of students on their way to breakfast. The smell of baking bread and strong tea drifts upward from the great hall. To wake here is to feel as if the outside world, Muggle streets, the noise of cities, the pulse of another civilization, has been put on hold. Hogwarts is more than a school. It is a living archive, a place where centuries of knowledge have been tended like a garden, passed from hand to hand, voice to voice. As the morning bell fades, the castle stirs fully to life. Owls swoop in from the open windows, wings whispering in the cool air. Somewhere in the distance, a door opens onto a corridor that wasn't there yesterday. The day's lessons await, but here, the lessons are not only in books, they are in the very stones beneath your feet. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry has stood for more than a millennium, its foundations sunk deep into the bedrock of Scottish hills, its towers rising like watchful sentinels over the Black Lake. Founded around the year 990, it was the vision of four great witches and wizards: Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin, each bringing not only their skill, but their values and ideals into the shaping of the school. From the beginning, the founders agreed that Hogwarts would welcome magical children from across Britain and Ireland, but they differed in what qualities they valued most. Their compromise became the four houses, each bearing the name and spirit of its founder. Gryffindor prizes bravery, daring, and chivalry. Its emblem, the lion, speaks of courage that roars even in the face of fear. The Gryffindor common room is warm and bright, with high windows and a roaring fire, a place where bold plans are often whispered late into the night. Hufflepuff values loyalty, kindness, and hard work. The badger, steadfast and unyielding, is its emblem. Its common room lies near the kitchens, filled with the smell of baking bread and the golden glow of lanterns. Here, no one is left out, and the strength of the house comes from the quiet trust its members place in one another. Ravenclaw holds wisdom, creativity, and wit above all. His emblem is the eagle, soaring above the clouds in search of new horizons. To enter the airy tower that serves as its common room, one must answer a riddle, proof that here, curiosity and cleverness are the keys to belonging. Slytherin values ambition, resourcefulness, and determination. Its emblem is the serpent, gliding unseen until it strikes. The common room lies beneath the Black Lake, its green light shifting across stone walls like the reflection of water. To outsiders, it may seem shadowed, but to those who belong, it is a sanctuary where cunning is respected and plans are woven with care. Upon arrival at Hogwarts, every first year is led into the Great Hall for the sorting ceremony. Before the entire school, they place upon their head the sorting hat, a battered, patched relic imbued with the intelligence of the four founders. It peers into a student's thoughts, weighing their strengths and inclinations, and declares the house where they will spend their years. The hat's choice is binding, though it sometimes listens to a student's own wish if the desire is strong enough. Life in a house is more than shared dormitories and meals. It is a miniature family within the larger school, shaping loyalties, fostering rivalries, and providing a foundation for friendships that can last a lifetime. House points are awarded for triumphs in class and on the Quidditch pitch, and deducted for rule breaking or poor conduct. The points are counted throughout the year, culminating in the awarding of the House Cup, a moment of collective pride or disappointment felt by every member. To walk through Hogwarts is to pass constantly between these four worlds, all under the same enchanted roof. And though every student will graduate into the wider wizarding world, each will carry the colors and ideals of their house, stitched invisibly into the fabric of who they become. Hogwarts is not merely a castle, it is a living classroom, its stone corridors and shifting staircases leading to places where lessons are older than the building itself. The education here is steeped in tradition, but it is also alive, changing with each generation of students who pass through its halls. From their very first day, students are immersed in a core curriculum designed to give them the foundations of magical practice. Transfiguration, the art of changing the form and nature of objects, taught with precision and discipline. A matchstick might become a needle in the hands of a novice, but the truly skilled can turn an animal into an inanimate object, and back again without harm. Charms, the branch of magic that alters an object's behavior without changing its essence. Here, feathers drift in mid-air under the spell Wingardium Leviosa, doors spring open with Alohomora, and light blooms from the tip of a wand with Lumos. Potions, a subject as much about patience as power. Students stir, chop, and measure in the cool, dimly lit dungeon classroom, brewing mixtures that can heal, harm, or transform. Defense against the dark arts, protection against curses, hexes, and the creatures that wield them. This is a class where theory meets urgency, as students practice shielding spells, counter curses, and survival tactics. History of magic, the study of wizarding history, from ancient civilizations to the great wars and treaties that shape the present. Astronomy, held in the High Astronomy Tower, where students chart the night sky and learn how the movements of celestial bodies influence magic. Herbology, taught in greenhouses, warm with the smell of earth and leaves, focusing on magical plants and their uses in healing, spellwork, and potions. In the third year, students may choose electives: arithmancy, the magical properties of numbers and their use in predicting outcomes; care of magical creatures, lessons often held on the castle grounds or deep into the forbidden forest, introducing students to creatures both gentle and dangerous. Divination, the art of foretelling the future through tea leaves, crystal balls, and other methods. Its accuracy debated, but its allure undeniable. Ancient runes, studying the scripts of long-vanished magical cultures, decoding spells etched centuries ago. Muggle studies, an exploration of non-magical society, its customs, and its technology. Classes at Hogwarts are rarely confined to desks and parchment. A lesson in charms might see students practicing on moving targets. A herbology class could involve wrestling with a stubborn, venomous tentacula. A care of magical creatures lesson might require calming a skittish hippogriff with a bow of respect. Assessment is constant, but culminates in major exams, OWLs, ordinary wizarding levels, in the 5th year, and NEWTs, nastily exhausting wizarding tests, in the 7th. These determine not only a student's final marks, but often the careers open to them in the wizarding world. The soundtrack of Hogwarts learning is unmistakable: the scratch of quills across parchment, the faint pop of a spell miscast, the murmur of incantations spoken in unison, the gentle hoot of an owl arriving mid-lesson with a sealed letter. Here, knowledge is not just read, it is handled, spoken, felt, and lived. And for those who leave these halls, the lessons learned within them continue to shape every spell cast for the rest of their lives. Hogwarts may be the heart of magical education in Britain, but it is only one voice in a much larger chorus. Across the world, other wizarding schools thrive, each shaped by its land, its history, and the values of the people who built it. Far to the south, nestled high in the Pyrenees Mountains of France, stands Beauxbaton's Academy of Magic. Its pale stone walls and sunlit courtyards give it the grace of a palace. Lessons here weave magic with the arts, dance, music, and fine spellcraft performed with elegance. Students move through the halls in flowing uniforms, and the dining tables are laden with delicacies as beautiful as they are delicious. Beauxbatons is a place where discipline and refinement walk hand in hand. In the deep north, shrouded in cold winds and tradition, lies Durmstrang Institute. Unlike Beauxbatons, Durmstrang is austere, its castle rising stark against a backdrop of snow and frozen lakes. It is known for its emphasis on martial magic, dueling, advanced defensive spells, and even certain branches of the dark arts, studied not for corruption, but for understanding and countering their power. Here, students train as much in discipline and strength as in magical theory. Across the ocean, in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, stands Castellabruxo, a sprawling stone fortress hidden beneath the canopy. The walls are covered in moss, the air thick with the scent of rain and flowers. Castellabruxo specializes in herbology and magizoology, its students often venturing into the jungle to study magical plants and creatures in their natural habitats. Protective spirits, known as Kaipora, guard the grounds, mischievous but fiercely loyal to the school. On the slopes of the Mountains of the Moon in Africa, carved directly into the rock, is Uagadou, the largest wizarding school on the continent, and one of the oldest in the world. Over 1,000 years old, Uagadou is famed for teaching magic without wands, its students conjuring and transfiguring with nothing but hand gestures. The school is also renowned for its mastery of astronomy and alchemy. To stand on its terraces at night is to see the stars as they have been charted by generations of magical astronomers. In North America, the granite towers of Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry rise on Mount Greylock. Founded by European settlers and inspired by Hogwarts, Ilvermorny blends traditions from across the magical world. Its houses, Thunderbird, Wampus, Horned Serpent, and Pukwudgie, reflect not only imported European ideas, but also the influence of Native American magical culture. Though separated by oceans and culture, these schools are not entirely isolated. They sometimes meet in academic exchanges, shared research projects, and most famously, in competitions such as the Tri-Wizard Tournament, a dangerous, prestigious contest testing courage, intelligence, and magical skill. To visit each is to see a different face of magic, Beauxbaton's elegance, Durmstrang's rigor, Castellabruxo's wild beauty, Uagadou's ancient wisdom, Ilvermorny's blended heritage. Each shapes its students into something unique, proving that while magic is universal, the way it is taught and the values it imparts are as varied as the lands in which it grows. Education in the wizarding world is not simply about passing exams, it is about carrying forward the living memory of magic. Every professor is a link in a chain stretching back centuries. They teach not only from books, but from experience, stories of their own triumphs and failures, cautionary tales of magic gone wrong, quiet encouragement for students struggling to find their place. There are lessons that cannot be written down, the precise flick of a wand, the subtle feel of a spell settling into place, the instinct to know when to act and when to wait. These are passed from teacher to student, student to friend, friend to future generation. Traditions bind the houses and the school together, the annual feasts, the house cup, the midnight wanderings that become legends whispered to first years. The walls themselves seem to hold the echoes of these moments, portraits that gossip about past students, staircases that remember where you've been. To study at Hogwarts, or at any magical school, is to become part of a shared story. Your name is added to a ledger that will still be read long after you are gone. The knowledge you carry will shape not only your life, but the lives of those who follow. In every stone corridor, every weathered book, every whispered spell, the voices of past generations are present, and in time, your own voice will join them. Another note in the long, unbroken song of magic. The morning mist hangs low over the edge of the forbidden forest, clinging to the ground in pale ribbons. Somewhere above, the sharp cry of a hunting bird cuts through the silence, but it is answered by something deeper, louder, older. A shadow sweeps across the grass. You look up, and for a heartbeat, the sun is blotted out by the spread of vast, leathery wings. A dragon soars overhead, its scales catching the light like hammered bronze, each wing beat rolling in your chest like distant thunder. At the tree line, movement, something gaunt, skeletal, its hide stretched thin over visible bones. A pair of unblinking white eyes stare at you from beneath the sweep of bat-like wings. And then, as you blink, it is gone. The thestral leaves no trace, unless you are among the few who can see it. Far from the open air, in the vault-lit depths beneath Gringotts Bank, another kind of creature works in silence. A goblin leans over a gold galleon, its sharp features caught in the flicker of lamplight. With long, deft fingers, it carves delicate runes into the metal's edge, each mark a language older than most human kingdoms. The sound, tap, scrape, tap, echoes softly off the stone walls. In the wizarding world, humans are not the only keepers of knowledge, power, and tradition. Between the living myths that rule the skies and the subtle minds that shape the economy, there exists an entire kingdom of creatures, some feared, some revered, some barely understood. Before a witch or wizard ever encounters a magical creature, they are taught one thing: know its classification. This is not idle bureaucracy. The Ministry of Magic's Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures developed a universal 5-tier scale, simple in appearance, yet essential for survival. Each creature is given a rating, marked by a row of X's, to indicate its danger level and the expertise required to handle it. Single X, boring, harmless. These creatures pose no threat and are often domesticated. Many are kept as pets by wizarding families. Examples include the flobberworm, a slow-moving worm that feeds on lettuce, or the affectionate, humming puffskein. Encounter risk: none, unless boredom counts. Double X, harmless but requires adequate handling. Safe when treated correctly, these animals still require basic magical knowledge to care for. The Nezzle, a highly intelligent cat-like creature with a talent for detecting suspicious people, fits here. So does the Krupp, a dog-like beast with a forked tail, fiercely loyal but prone to snapping at strangers. Encounter risk: mild, follow care instructions. Triple X, competent wizards should cope, potentially dangerous if provoked or mishandled. Examples include hippogriffs, which demand respect and proper etiquette, and unicorns, which can react violently to those who approach with ill intent. Encounter risk: manageable with skill and caution. Quadruple X, dangerous, requires specialist knowledge. Aggressive, territorial, or magically powerful, these creatures should be approached only by trained magizoologists. The Chimera, a deadly hybrid with a lion's head, goat's body, and dragon's tail, is one example. Certain dragon breeds, such as the Norwegian Ridgeback, also fall here. Encounter risk: high, avoid unless trained and equipped. Quintuple X, known wizard killer / impossible to train, the highest danger rating. These are creatures that cannot be domesticated and will attack without provocation. The Basilisk, whose gaze can kill, and the ferocious Hungarian horntail dragon are infamous examples. Encounter risk: extreme, contact forbidden without ministry clearance. This classification is more than a ministry formality. A glance at a creature's rating can dictate your every move, whether to approach, retreat, or prepare for a defensive spell. Experienced witches and wizards learn to read the subtle signs that don't appear on parchment: the sudden silence before an acromantula drops from the trees, the flick of a kelpie's tail before it strikes from the water. For magizoologists, the X rating system is a starting point, not the end. Creatures change with age, mood, and season. A normally docile being may turn deadly in defense of its young, but for students, travelers, and anyone venturing into the unknown, those lines of X's are the simplest lifeline they have. Some creatures in the magical world exist at the edges of myth, beings so striking, so fearsome that their names alone carry the weight of legend. To encounter one is to step into a living story, though not all such stories end safely. Dragons. There is no mistaking the presence of a dragon. Long before you see it, you hear the rush of air from its colossal wings, feel the faint tremor in the earth as it lands, smell the heat in its breath. Dragons are among the most dangerous magical creatures, most earning the dreaded quintuple X classification. Their sheer size, strength, and fiery breath make them nearly impossible to subdue, yet each breed carries its own story. The Hungarian horntail, considered the most aggressive, bears black scales, bronze horns, and a tail lined with deadly spikes. Its fire can reach 50 feet. The Welsh green, more reclusive, prefers to avoid humans altogether, nesting in high mountain passes. Its roar is a piercing trumpet call. The Chinese fireball, famed for its bright scarlet scales and golden fringe of flame, produces a distinctive mushroom-shaped burst of fire when angered. Despite their ferocity, dragons are intelligent in their own way, territorial, fiercely protective of their young, and often bound to a single stretch of land for life. The Strolls. Thin, skeletal, and winged, the Strolls are invisible to anyone who has not witnessed death firsthand. For those who can see them, their pale, milky eyes seem to look straight through to memory. The Strolls feed on carrion, gliding silently between the trees, but are far from mindless scavengers. They are gentle with those who treat them respectfully and can be trained to pull carriages or serve as swift, reliable mounts. At Hogwarts, they are the unseen carriers of the school carriages from Hogsmeade Station. Many students ride with them for years before realizing the truth that the empty traces in front of each carriage were never truly empty. Hippogriffs. Proud and noble, the hippogriff is a creature of both earth and sky. Its front half is that of a giant eagle, talons curved and sharp, eyes bright with intelligence. Its hindquarters are the strong, muscular body of a horse. Approach without respect, and you may meet those talons at full force. The proper greeting is to bow, eyes lowered but alert, and wait for the creature to bow in return. Only then is it safe to draw closer. When trust is earned, the hippogriff will allow a rider soaring over hills and lakes in powerful, rhythmic wing beats. From such heights, the world below becomes a tapestry of greens and blues, stitched together by rivers of light. Acromantulas. In the dim undergrowth of certain deep forests, there are places where even the birds go silent. This is the realm of the acromantula, a giant spider with a leg span of up to 15 feet, covered in thick black hair, with eyes that gleam like droplets of oil in the dark. Acromantulas are intelligent, capable of speech in a clicking, hissing language. They hunt in groups, weaving vast webs between trees to ensnare prey. Their venom is both rare and valuable, but collecting it is a task few survive. The Ministry rates them quadruple X, but many megazoologists argue they deserve quintuple X for the speed and coordination of their attacks. Beyond the famous names, not all legendary creatures are known for their danger. Unicorns, for example, are shy, gentle beings with coats that shine like moonlight and blood of pure silver, yet even they are fiercely protective of their herds and will fight to defend their young. Each of these creatures holds a place in the tapestry of the magical world, woven from threads of instinct, magic, and myth. Some inspire fear, others awe, and a few, like the thustral, both at once. To study them is to walk a fine line between curiosity and caution, between the desire to know and the wisdom to keep one's distance. In their presence, you are reminded that magic is not merely a human gift. It is a living force, shared with beings whose histories run as deep as the oldest spells, and whose legends will outlive us all. In the wizarding world, not all non-human inhabitants are classed as creatures. The Ministry of Magic makes a formal distinction. Beasts are magical animals without full human-level intelligence. while beings are those capable of speech, reasoning, and understanding human laws. It is a definition that sounds simple until you try to apply it. For the magical societies that exist alongside wizard kind, the word being is less a label than a negotiation, shaped by history, prejudice, and the uneasy balance of power. Goblins, small in stature, but sharp in mind, goblins are master metal smiths and the guardians of wizarding finance. In the marble halls of Gringotts Bank, they work with quiet precision, minting galleons, sickles, and nuts, and crafting goblin-made blades that can drink in enchantments. Goblins see ownership differently from wizards, believing that an object's rights return to its maker upon the owner's death. This difference has led to centuries of subtle tension, with wizards passing down goblin-forged heirlooms, and goblins quietly considering them reclaimed property. Goblin rebellion is a recurring note in wizarding history, each uprising a reminder that the relationship between the two peoples is one of wary cooperation rather than harmony. House elves. Bound to wizarding households by ancient magic, house elves are tireless workers, able to perform complex magic without wands. They apparate effortlessly into places wizards cannot enter, and cook, clean, and repair with a speed that seems almost impossible. Their servitude is sustained not only by enchantment, but by long-standing tradition, and many elves see their work as a source of pride. Yet movements like Hermione Granger's Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, ASPEU, have begun to question this system, arguing for wages and freedom. Liberation is possible, symbolized by the gifting of clothes, but not always desired, creating a tangle of cultural identity and magical lore. Centaurs. Living deep within forests, centaurs are skilled in archery, healing, and above all, astrology. They chart the skies for meaning, believing the movements of the planets reveal truths beyond human politics or ambition. Fiercely independent, centaurs reject classification as beings, despite their intelligence. They prefer to be governed by their own laws, their own councils, and have little interest in human disputes. To them, wizarding society is a distraction from the far greater patterns written in the night sky. Merpeople. Beneath the surfaces of lakes, rivers, and seas, merpeople build intricate communities, villages of stone and coral, lit by bioluminescent plants. Their appearance varies with the waters they inhabit. The merfolk of the Hogwarts lake are grey-skinned, with sharp teeth and flowing green hair, while tropical tribes may have brighter colors and less menacing features. They have their own language, Mermish, incomprehensible, in air but melodious and haunting underwater. Interaction with humans is limited, often mediated through translators or rare alliances in times of need. The Ministry's laws aim to regulate relations between wizards and these beings, but law is only part of the picture. True coexistence depends on respect, an awareness that these are not creatures to be tamed, but cultures with their own values, rights, and grievances. In the shadows of forests, in the depths of lakes, and even beneath the glittering chandeliers of Gringotts, these societies continue, older than many wizarding institutions, patient as stone, and though they share the world with wizards, they walk paths of their own, bound not by the same histories, but by their own unbroken traditions. Long before the Statute of Secrecy, magical creatures walked openly in the world. Their traces remain in the myths and stories Muggles still tell. Dragons are perhaps the clearest example, appearing in medieval tapestries, Norse sagas, and Asian festivals. Muggle knights claim to have slain them, though most of these victories were against charmed lizards or illusions planted by wizards to divert attention from real nests. Mermaids and mermen live on in sailors' tales and coastal legends. Paintings from the Renaissance show their likenesses, though often softened into something more beautiful than the reality. Giants, once more common, thundered through early human settlements, inspiring myths from the one-eyed cyclopes of Greece to to the frost giants of Norse lore. Even the gentler creatures have left their mark. Unicorns, with their silver blood and pure hearts, appear in medieval bestiaries as symbols of innocence. The Kneazle, a magical feline, may be the root of countless witches' cat superstitions. These echoes remind us that the boundary between magical and non-magical worlds was once far more porous. The creatures have retreated now, concealed by spells and wards, but their shadows still wander through human imagination, proof that memory, like magic, is hard to truly erase. The village of Hogsmeade wakes slowly. Mist curls between the chimneys, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and baking bread. Through the frosted glass of Madame Puddifoot's tea shop, steam swirls above porcelain cups. Across the street, the apothecary's door creaks open, releasing a sharp green scent of crushed herbs. A group of Hogwarts students passes by, their cloaks lifting in the morning breeze. They laugh, voices bright against the muffled hush of early hours. An owl swoops overhead, a tightly bound letter clutched in its talons, disappearing over the rooftops. Somewhere further along the cobbled road, a cart's wooden wheels clatter over uneven stones. The driver clicks his tongue, and the Thistrals pulling it pick up their pace, their invisible shapes, known only to those who can truly see them. The wizarding world hums with the life of ordinary days, but ordinary here is not like anywhere else. Every sound, every scent, every passing shadow holds the possibility of magic. And to walk these streets is to move through a place where history and enchantment live side by side, breathing together. In the wizarding world, wealth is measured not in paper notes, but in the weight of metal, gold, silver, and bronze. Galleons, minted in gold, are the highest denomination, gleaming with enchantments to prevent forgery. Sickles of silver are worth 17 to a galleon, and nuts of bronze are 29 to a sickle. The coins feel heavier than their muggle equivalents, as if the magic within gives them a subtle gravity of their own. When you turn one in your hand, the runes engraved along its edge seem to shift under the light, an effect designed as much for beauty as for security. At the center of all wizarding finance stands Gringotts Wizarding Bank, a fortress of white marble and strict order. The air inside is cool, echoing faintly with the measured clink of coins and the scratch of quills on parchment. Goblins work behind long counters, their eyes sharp and their fingers quick as they count and record. Below the bank's glittering surface lies a maze of vaults, some simple, others protected by curses, dragons, or mechanisms older than the ministry itself. The economy thrives on craftsmanship and magical specializations. Wandmakers like Ollivanders shape their creations with rare woods and powerful cores, each wand matched to its owner with precision. Robemakers, broomstick manufacturers, and apothecaries form the lifeblood of day-to-day trade. Potions brewed with moonstone powder or phoenix feather dust command prices high enough to make even a seasoned wizard pause before reaching for their coin pouch. In marketplaces, such as Diagon Alley, commerce is an experience as much as an exchange. The street hums with the chatter of hagglers, the thud of crates being unloaded, and the rustle of parchment bags. A stall selling self-stirring cauldrons shares space with a booth offering spell-resistant gloves. The air is rich with mingling scents, freshly baked pumpkin pasties from a nearby cart, the earthy bite of crushed dittany leaves from the apothecary, the faint tang of broom polish. Beyond goods, services drive much of wizarding trade, magical transportation, bespoke enchantments, curse removal, even event planning for wizard weddings and Quidditch victory feasts. Every transaction is a small act of trust, not only in the honesty of the trader, but in the invisible magic woven into the objects themselves. Here, money is more than currency. It is a physical thread tying the wizarding community together, connecting the high vaults of Gringotts to the smallest coin purse tucked into a school robe. And every clink of gold on wood, Every soft jingle in a pocket carries the quiet reminder that even in a world built on magic, value is still something you can weigh in your hand. In the wizarding world, travel is never just a matter of getting from one place to another. It is an experience shaped by magic, filled with sensations Muggle transport could never match. The Flu Network is the backbone of magical domestic travel, linking fireplaces across Britain. To use it, one steps into the grate, sprinkles a pinch of glittering Flu powder into the flames, and calls out the destination clearly. The fire roars emerald green, the air whirls, and the traveler is pulled headlong into a spinning tunnel of hearths, emerging moments later in a completely different place, often with soot in their hair. For those who prefer direct routes, there is apparition, vanishing from one spot and reappearing instantly in another. The sensation is unsettling, a sudden, crushing squeeze from all directions, like being pulled through a narrow rubber tube. Skilled apparators land without so much as a wobble. The inexperienced may arrive dizzy, or worse, suffer the dreaded splinching, leaving part of themselves behind. Portkeys provide another form of magical travel, especially for group trips. They are ordinary-looking objects, an old boot, a bent kettle, enchanted to activate at a specific moment. The instant you touch one, a hook catches behind your navel and yanks you through space, dropping you at the destination in a disorienting tumble. Broomsticks are the most romantic means of travel. A good broom,
like a Nimbus 2000 or a Firebolt, is both transport and freedom.
The wind rushes past your ears. The air grows colder as you climb higher, and the land spreads beneath you in patchwork greens and browns. For Quidditch players and thrill seekers, broom flight is as much sport as it is travel. Then there are the quieter, more traditional modes. The stroll-drawn carriages carry students from Hogsmeade Station to Hogwarts, their skeletal, bat-winged forms visible only to those who have seen death. Enchanted boats glide silently across the black waters of the Hogwarts lake, carrying first years toward the glowing silhouette of the castle. In some countries, flying carpets are still legal, drifting gracefully above deserts and city rooftops. Each method has its own rhythm, its own personality. Some rush you to your destination in a blink. Others invite you to savor the journey, but all remind you that in the wizarding world, travel is never just about the destination. It's about the magic that carries you there. In the wizarding world, healing is not confined to sterile wards and white coats. It is a craft, a science, and an art, woven from centuries of magical knowledge. At the center of magical healthcare stands St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries, hidden behind the facade of an old London department store. Inside, lime green robed healers move briskly between wards, their wands as essential as any surgical tool. The hospital is divided into specialized floors: spell damage, where curses are unraveled and hex scars erased; creature-induced injuries, treating venomous bites, burns and stings; potion and plant poisoning, where antidotes bubble quietly on bedside tables; magical diseases, from contagious dragonpox to the slow, creeping effects of spattergroit. Potions are at the heart of wizarding medicine. Skelegrow painfully regrows lost bones, its taste sharp enough to make even the bravest patient wince. Essence of Dittany seals wounds almost instantly, leaving only a faint trace of silver where the skin closed. Pepper Up Potion banishes chills, steam curling from the drinker's ears. Charms and countercurses are equally vital. A flick of a wand can knit together torn muscle, dissolve internal bleeding, or dispel lingering hexes. More complex injuries may require enchanted tools: silver scalpels that sever only cursed tissue, crystal lenses to detect invisible magical infections. The air in a healer's workroom is alive with scents: the sharp green of fresh dittany leaves, the smoky tang of powdered bezoar, the faint sweetness of crystallized moondew. Cauldrons bubble in low light, their surfaces shimmering with pearly vapors. In the background, the steady hum of healing magic blends with the occasional soft pop of a potion stabilizing. Yet even in this world, not all wounds can be mended. There are curses too deeply woven, poisons too swift, and illnesses that defy the best efforts of healer and potion alike. In those cases, magic offers comfort rather than cure, warmth in the cold hours, a whispered charm to ease pain, the quiet dignity of care. Here, medicine is more than a profession. It is a promise that no witch or wizard will face harm alone, and that the knowledge of how to mend what is broken will always be passed to the next generation. In the wizarding world, sport is more than entertainment. It is magic in motion, a celebration of skill, rivalry, and tradition. At the heart of it all is Quidditch, the game that captures the soul of magical sport. Played high above the ground on broomsticks, it is fast, dangerous, and wildly unpredictable. 2 teams of 7 players take to the skies. Chasers weave through the air, passing the red quaffle and aiming to send it through one of 3 opposing hoops. Beaters defend their teammates with bats, driving away the rogue bludgers, iron balls that hurl themselves at players with bone-breaking force. Keepers guard their team's hoops, eyes scanning for every incoming attack. Seekers pursue the tiny, darting golden snitch, whose capture ends the game and awards 150 points. The atmosphere of a Quidditch match begins hours before the first whistle. Outside the stadium, vendors sell butterbeer in foaming mugs, trays of pumpkin pasties, and bags of roasted chestnuts, their scents mingling in the crisp air. Carriages arrive in steady lines, the straws snorting softly, their passengers buzzing with anticipation. Flags in house or national colors flutter overhead, their fabric snapping in the wind. Inside, the pitch is an explosion of color and sound. Oft a commentator's voice booms magically across the stands, blending with the roar of the crowd. Brooms streak past in blurs of scarlet, green, yellow, or blue. A collective gasp rises as a seeker dives, broom pointed straight toward the ground in pursuit of a glint of gold, followed by a deafening cheer if the catch is made. Quidditch may reign supreme, but it is far from the only game. Wizard's chess transforms strategy into spectacle, with pieces that smash, stab, and tackle under the player's command. Gobstones, a marble game favored by students, punishes mistakes with a spray of foul-smelling liquid. Smaller local sports and enchanted pastimes, like broom racing, along the coast or magical creature tracking contests, flourish in villages and schoolyards. Even leisure beyond sport carries a magical touch. Wizarding fairs feature stalls selling self-playing instruments, fireworks that form living creatures in the sky, and enchanted rides that twist through the air. On quieter days, pubs and tea shops serve as gathering places, their tables scattered with decks of exploding snap or enchanted puzzle boxes. In this world, play is never separate from magic. It flows through the games, the celebrations, and the shared moments of triumph and loss. Whether you are a seeker chasing the snitch or a spectator wrapped in a house scarf on a cold night, sport here is not just pastime. It is the pulse of the wizarding community. Night falls on Diagon Alley. Lanterns swing gently in the breeze, their light catching on the gold lettering of shop signs. The day's last customers linger in doorways, voices soft against the creak of wooden shutters closing. Somewhere, a busker plays a slow, meandering tune on a fiddle enchanted to never go out of tune. The air is rich with overlapping scents, wood smoke from a chimney, the sugary sweetness of a newly baked treacle tart cooling in a window, the sharp tang of potion vapors seeping from an open apothecary door. You walk slowly, your boots tapping on the cobblestones, passing shop fronts lit from within. Behind one window, a young witch tests a new wand. In another, a wizard studies a Quidditch broom, as if measuring it for flight. For a moment, the wall between this world and the other, the muggle streets you came from, feels impossibly thin. But here, under these lanterns, amid the soft hum of magic in the air, you are home. And as you step into the night, the sense lingers that life here is not only about spells and potions, but about the rhythm of days, the warmth of shared spaces, and the quiet magic that hides in the ordinary. There are doors in the wizarding world that have never been opened wide, doors before which even the greatest witches and wizards pause, uncertain if they truly understand what lies beyond. We are familiar with charms, with jewels, with the names of famous schools, yet behind all that is written into textbooks, there remain shadows, threads of silence woven through the vast tapestry of magical history. In this journey, we will step carefully into three realms that have always lingered at the edges of knowledge. First, the Department of Mysteries, hidden deep within the Ministry of Magic, where rooms devoted to time, love, and death wait in silence, each guarding truths too heavy to speak aloud. Second, the ancient magical civilizations, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, where sorcery once walked hand in hand with power and faith, leaving behind scattered fragments that hint at a history far wider than we are taught. And finally, the origins of magic itself, the most fundamental question of all. Was it a gift, an evolution, or an accident of the universe? No answer is certain, only mist, waiting for us to reach into it, hoping to touch something that has always remained hidden. Let us begin. The Department of Mysteries, where silence holds secrets, a hidden heart beneath the ministry. Far below the polished atriums and bustling offices of the Ministry of Magic lies a place that almost no witch or wizard will ever see. It is not marked on any visitor's guide. It has no welcoming fireplace for flow arrivals, no cheery reception desk, no clerk to stamp your papers. It is the Department of Mysteries, a labyrinth of black corridors, circular rooms, and locked doors, each one a threshold into the unknown. Those who work here are known only as unspeakables. The title is no flourish, it is a binding oath, never to describe what you have seen, never to hint at the truths you carry, never to let slip even the faintest whisper of the forces you serve. They are researchers, guardians, philosophers, archivists, but more than anything, they are keepers of silence. To outsiders, the department is a rumor. A friend of a friend who works deep in the ministry may have mentioned it once over a pint, lowering their voice as if the walls themselves were listening. The truth is that even many high-ranking ministry officials know little of what lies behind those sealed doors. The unspeakables walk among them in the cafeteria, ride the lifts, nod politely in the corridors, and yet remain strangers. What does the department study? Not legislation, not trade, not the practical governance of wizarding society. It concerns itself with questions so elemental that to even ask them is to brush against terror. What is time? What is death? What is love? What is thought? What is prophecy? Each chamber of the department holds one of these riddles at its heart, and each answers with silence. The Hall of Time, rivers that refuse to obey. The Hall of Time is perhaps the most dazzling chamber, though dazzling feels too shallow for the experience of entering it. The domed ceiling bends the eye into illusions, stars glimmering as if frozen mid-fall, constellations pulsing faintly like beating hearts. The walls are lined with clocks, from enormous brass-faced pendulums to delicate silver watches that float unsupported in mid-air. All tick in eerie synchrony, though the hands do not agree. Some circle forward, some backward, others loop endlessly in small figure eights. Hourglasses tower like monuments, some taller than a man, pouring sand not downward but upward, glowing in hues of amber and sapphire. On shelves lie glass orbs filled with radiant particles, each a miniature river of time. Some swirl at dizzying speeds, others crawl so slowly that a single grain takes minutes to shift. Step into this hall, and you feel your heartbeat begin to falter, adjusting itself against a dozen invisible rhythms. Breathing becomes strange, stretched, as though your body cannot decide what now is. It was here that time-turners were crafted and tested. The unspeakables measured the strain of sending a human soul back into its own past, watching for fractures in continuity. Rumors say entire subjects vanished, not killed, not transported, but erased, as though history itself spat them out. Some experiments ended with paradox, letters arriving before they were written, footsteps echoing in rooms before their owners entered. Because of these dangers, time turners were heavily restricted, their use limited to a few hours at most. Yet even that brief span was perilous. A careless act, a word spoken to the wrong person, could ripple outward, twisting events. And still, the questions linger. If you could revisit a moment, touch your mother's hand one last time, warn a friend before disaster, undo a mistake, would you resist? In the hall of time, the ticking grows louder, the longer you stay, until it feels like a plea. Do not tamper, do not meddle, leave the river to run its course. The death chamber whispers beyond the veil. The death chamber is quieter, but its silence is not peaceful. It is heavy, pressing, a silence that carries the weight of every funeral ever whispered, every farewell never spoken. The room is circular, its stone walls rising in steep tiers like an amphitheater. But there is no performance here. At the center stands a great arch of crumbling stone, freestanding with no wall to support it. Draped across the arch is a thin, tattered veil of black fabric. Its edges flutter gently, though the air is perfectly still. Step closer, and the chill is immediate, not cold like winter wind, but deep, marrow cold, the chill of absence itself. If you listen long enough, faint murmurs seep into your ears. Not words exactly, but impressions, half-familiar voices, echoes of people you once loved. A lullaby you cannot remember who sang. A laugh that makes your heart ache, though you cannot place the face. Many believe this veil is a gateway, the boundary between the living and the dead. No unspeakable has confirmed it, yet all agree on one truth: to step through is not to return. Why does the ministry keep such a thing in its depths? Perhaps to guard it, perhaps to study it, perhaps simply because it cannot be moved. Wizards debate endlessly: is the veil mercy, terror, or temptation? Those who have lingered too close often leave changed. Some dream of hands reaching for them from behind the fabric. Others wake to the sound of whispers that fade as the morning comes. The chamber is not a place of answers, it is a place of confrontation. To stand before the veil is to feel your mortality press against you like a tide, to realize that even the most powerful spell cannot buy eternity. The Hall of Prophecy, a maze of futures. If time speaks in ticking, and death speaks in silence, the Hall of Prophecy sings in a chorus of whispers. Row upon row of towering shelves stretch into darkness, each lined with fragile glass orbs glowing faintly within. Inside each orb is the memory of a seer's vision, preserved as crystal sound. The hall hums faintly as you walk, as if the air itself vibrates with the weight of futures waiting to be chosen. The rules here are strict. An orb can only be lifted by the witch or wizard whose name it contains. Any other hand risks shattering it into dust, releasing a voice that will never be silenced, a fragment of fate denied to those who sought to steal it. Imagine wandering the aisles. Thousands of fates glitter softly in the dark. How many wars, how many births, how many deaths are captured in these fragile spheres? Do they record inevitabilities or merely possibilities? The philosophical dilemma is sharp. If a prophecy names you, does that mean you are bound to fulfill it? Or is it simply one thread among many, a suggestion rather than a command? Unspeakables study these orbs, not to dictate destiny, but to understand the tension between fate and free will. And still, the shelves grow, one orb at a time, futures piling upon futures, until the hall feels more like a graveyard than a library. The Chamber of Love, the power that defies. Little is known of the Chamber of Love, and perhaps that secrecy is deliberate. Some say it contains a vast cauldron of shimmering rose gold liquid, pulsing like a heartbeat. Others whisper of unseen currents that wash over visitors, filling them with warmth, so overwhelming they lose sense of self. Love is the force Voldemort never understood, the one shield against the darkest magic. In this chamber, unspeakables study why certain sacrifices echo through generations, why a mother's embrace could outlast a killing curse, why affection leaves marks deeper than any spell. The Chamber of Love is not about romance. It is about connection, the invisible thread binding souls. If time is a river and death is a boundary, then love is the bridge between them, defying both. Some rumors speak of other unnamed chambers, rooms of thought, of memory, of the mind itself. Those who emerge describe glowing motes that pulse like ideas made visible, voices whispering their own unspoken desires back to them. Yet such stories are always uncertain, as though language fails at the threshold. The unspeakables, guardians of silence. Who dares to work in these chambers? The unspeakables. They are not adventurers seeking glory. They are scholars, researchers, often introverted and obsessive. Their work is lonely, their discoveries too dangerous to be shared. Many spend decades within the department, emerging only occasionally, their hair grayer, their eyes shadowed by things they cannot explain. To become an unspeakable is to surrender part of your life. It is to accept that your greatest achievements may never be known, your insights never published, your questions never answered aloud. Knowledge here is not celebrated, it is carried like a burden. And yet there is nobility in their silence, for without guardians, these mysteries might consume the world. The unspeakables remind wizarding society that its wonders are fragile, its knowledge incomplete, its questions larger than any spellbook can hold. Philosophy of the department, the silence between answers. What is the department truly? A research branch, a vault, a sanctuary? Perhaps it is all three, but above all, it is a mirror. It reflects back the questions that humanity cannot escape. What does it mean to live in time? What does it mean to die? Do we choose our path, or is it chosen for us? What binds us together when all else fails? In the end, the Department of Mysteries is not about answers. It is about humility. For every spell mastered, there is a veil that cannot be lifted, a prophecy that cannot be changed, a clock that will not turn backward. The silence of the unspeakables mirrors the silence of the mysteries themselves. No language is sufficient to describe the sound of your grandmother's laugh, echoing from a veil of black fabric. No spell can capture the sight of sand climbing upward, defying gravity. To walk its halls is to realize that magic, for all its brilliance, is not an escape from the human condition. It is its reflection. Closing note. The Department of Mysteries endures beneath the ministry's polished floors, unseen but constant. It waits for those bold or foolish enough to seek its doors. It does not promise answers, only silence. And sometimes, silence is the only answer that matters. Ancient magical civilizations, echoes in the dust, the forgotten roots of wizarding history. Most wizards imagine history as beginning with familiar landmarks, the founding of Hogwarts in the 10th century, the passage of the Statute of Secrecy in the 17th, or the rise and fall of Voldemort in the 20th. Yet the magical world stretches far deeper. Beneath the surface of well-told tales lies a half-buried history, epochs when magic was not a hidden practice, but an open architecture of society, shaping monuments, myths, and empires. The ministry's official records skim over these eras, offering only fragmentary mentions, but scattered evidence, cursed tombs, ancient texts, whispered folk memories, suggest civilizations of witches and wizards flourished long before medieval Europe. These cultures wielded magic, not as private craft, but as the very bones of governance, religion, and survival. They lived in symbiosis with forces modern spellbooks only scratch at, and in their ruins, one can still feel the hum of power. Egypt, tombs of the eternal spell. Of all ancient lands, Egypt is perhaps the clearest window into primordial magic. The desert air preserved what elsewhere would have decayed, and with it linger enchantments that even now resist unraveling. Pharaohs, according to both Muggle historians and wizarding scholars, were never merely rulers. They stood at the heart of magical dynasties, supported by circles of sorcerers whose spells bound entire kingdoms together. Protection charms carved into scarabs, amulets designed to repel both curses and venom, and even weatherworking rituals ensured the Nile's yearly flood. All were routine acts of governance. The curse of the pharaohs is no superstition. Countless Muggle excavators, who pried open sealed tombs, suffered bizarre ailments, sudden fever, hallucinations, even unexplained death. Wizarding observers recognized them as remnants of necromantic traps, spells designed not to fade after decades, but to endure centuries. Ancient Egyptian wizards appear to have mastered the art of permanence, crafting enchantments intended to outlive their casters, perhaps to echo forever. Hieroglyphs may themselves have been a magical writing system. More than art or language, they functioned as runic locks, encoding power into walls and scrolls. To inscribe the falcon was to call down the protection of the sky. To paint the scarab was to invoke rebirth. Unspeakables who study recovered fragments claim the symbols still vibrate faintly, as if the stone remembers its charge. And then there are the pyramids. Muggles marvel at their engineering. Wizards suspect something far stranger, that the structures are geometric foci, amplifiers of ley line energy. Some propose they were colossal wards, shielding Egypt from invasion. Others whisper of darker purposes, that they were prisons, designed to bind forces no society should unleash. In Egypt, magic was never a private act. It was statecraft, religion, science, and death bound into one. To walk among its ruins is to feel both awe and dread, for some curses slumber still, waiting. Mesopotamia, Sumerian whispers. If Egypt ruled with monuments, Sumer ruled with words. Nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates, this civilization left behind clay tablets that puzzle Muggle archaeologists, but intrigue wizarding runologists. The wedge-shaped impressions of cuneiform may conceal the earliest attempts at proto-runes, condensed magical syllables meant to shape reality. In the Tales of Beedle the Bard lurks a passing line about words carved in mud that called fire to dance. Few notice it, but scholars see it as a faint echo of Sumerian spellcraft. Their magicians spoke and wrote spells that commanded the elements, not unlike the incantations used today, but simpler, raw, almost primal. Legends claim these sorcerers could animate clay statues, giving them movement and rudimentary thought. The Jewish golem of later folklore may be a direct descendant of this art. If true, then Mesopotamian wizards had already begun to master the binding of spirit into matter, a field most modern spellcasters approach only with dread. The towering ziggurats, which Muggles call temples, may have been magical observatories. Wizards speculate that rituals performed at their summits channeled stellar energy into spells. The alignment of runes with constellations suggests a system of celestial magic, blending astronomy and sorcery into one practice. Yet the civilization collapsed. Did their magic fail them? Did they tamper with forces too volatile, or were their secrets buried deliberately? Today, only fragments remain, clay tablets whose markings shimmer oddly when touched by wand light, myths of kings who spoke to gods, echoes of a language that once bent fire and wind. Greece and Rome, the sorcery of myths. If Egypt whispers and Sumer murmurs, Greece and Rome shout their magical heritage through myth. For Muggles, centaurs, satyrs, and nymphs are fanciful tales. For wizards, they are distorted memories of real encounters. The labyrinth of the Minotaur may not have been metaphor but reality, an enchanted maze whose walls shifted to trap intruders, echoing later magical competitions, such as the Tri-Wizard Tournament. The creature within, whether natural or magically bred, became the seed of legend. Greek oracles, shrouded in smoke and trance, may have been among the first natural seers. The oracle at Delphi, famed for her cryptic predictions, could well have been a witch channeling unfiltered prophecy. Some scholars suggest the ministry's Hall of Prophecy descends directly from these practices, an institutional attempt to preserve and categorize what Greece revered as divine. Rome carried this magical heritage into empire. Roman wizards were said to march with legions, weaving wards over entire battalions, enchanting standards to inspire courage or spread fear. Records speak of battle mages whose spells broke enemy lines before swords clashed. More troubling are the hints of Roman arrogance. Goblins pressed into servitude, giants coerced into labor, magical creatures exploited as weapons. Ultimately, this ambition sowed collapse. When the empire fractured, its magical infrastructure crumbled too, yet its myths endured, refracted into Muggle memory, gods hurling lightning bolts, sorceresses turning men into beasts, augurs reading omens in the flight of birds. To wizards, these are less fantasy than fossilized recollections of practices once common. Other glimpses, threads across the globe. Though Egypt, Sumer, Greece, and Rome dominate the narrative, other regions hum with echoes. In the misty isles of Britain and Ireland, stone circles align with solstices, their geometry humming faintly under wandlight. Celtic druids may have blended earth magic with astronomy, crafting rituals lost after Roman conquest. In India, Vedic hymns describe mantras that call down fire or summon storms, possibly spells woven through rhythm and sound rather than wandwork. In China, dragon lore was not mere myth. Dragons were studied, revered, even ridden by ancient magicians who treated them not as beasts, but as cosmic partners. In the Americas, carvings in Mayan and Incan temples suggest sun magic, rituals designed to bind astronomical cycles to human harvests. Together, these threads hint that magic once thrived openly across the globe, varied in method but united in visibility. Secrecy came later, the silence of the ages. Why do so few traces remain? Perhaps catastrophe erased them. Magical plagues, elemental disasters, wars fought with spells too terrible to record. Perhaps secrecy was not born in the 17th century, but imposed long before, after civilizations learned that exposure brought ruin. Another theory is more unsettling, that wizards themselves erased their past. Fearful of Muggle curiosity, or of their own unchecked hubris, they buried their heritage beneath myth, disguising truths as stories until no one remembered. Yet traces persist. Unspeakables occasionally travel to ruins, quietly retrieving cursed amulets, rune-marked shards, or inscriptions that glow faintly when read aloud. They lock these artifacts away, not to share, but to preserve. The silence frustrates historians, but serves as warning. Knowledge this old is rarely gentle. What sleeps in ruins is not always meant to be woken. Closing reflection, the civilizations of Egypt, Sumer, Greece, Rome, and countless others, whose names we may never know, are not merely antiquity, they are shadows stretching into the present. In their ruins we see the same obsessions that haunt the Department of Mysteries, the hunger to command time, to cheat death, to foresee destiny, to bend the world with word or symbol. Their monuments crumble, their empires fade, but the questions remain. Perhaps that is the true continuity of wizarding civilization, not spells, not bloodlines, but longing. The ancients asked their questions in stone and clay. We ask them still, in whispers beneath the ministry. And maybe the greatest mystery of all is this: what if the answers were never lost? What if they wait, sleeping, in some tomb, some ruin, some rune, biding their time until the veil of secrecy slips and magic remembers itself whole again? The origins of magic, the first spark, a question without an answer. Of all mysteries in the wizarding world, none is more profound than the question, where did magic come from? Wizards live by it, shape their lives around it, and yet even the most brilliant minds admit ignorance. The Department of Mysteries has studied it for centuries. Scholars from Beauxbatons and Durmstrang have debated it, and old tales from every culture hint at beginnings, but no definitive answer has ever surfaced. This silence is striking. Spells can be catalogued, magical creatures classified, potions brewed to perfection. But magic itself, its essence, resists dissection. Wizards wield it instinctively, as though it were a birthright, but cannot name the moment it entered the world. The gene and the gift. In the modern age, scholars often frame the question biologically. Magical ability appears hereditary, clustering in families. A child with two magical parents is almost always born with the gift. One magical parent usually suffices. Rarely, even two muggles may produce a magical child, proof that the trait can resurface unexpectedly. Conversely, squibs show that the lineage can falter, leaving one child barren of power in a family otherwise steeped in spellcraft. Some magical geneticists suggest the presence of a wizarding gene, dominant in expression. The theory holds intuitive appeal, explaining why bloodlines matter and why prejudices like pure blood persist. Yet even this model falters, for what precisely is inherited? Not spells, not incantations, not wands, but the ability itself, the raw current that allows words and gestures to mold reality. Others reject the gene entirely, calling magic a gift bestowed by higher powers or drawn from the fabric of the earth itself. In this view, magical children are chosen, not bred. Sparks of divine or elemental will clothed in human form. Such interpretations are popular among spiritualists, though ridiculed by the pragmatic. The truth may lie somewhere between. Heredity is undeniable, but so too is mystery. Perhaps the gene is real, but what it channels is something far older than biology. The evolutionary theory. Another school of thought places magic in the slow march of evolution. Perhaps wizards are simply a branch of humanity that developed differently, carrying within them an extra sense, an additional organ, a subtle mutation that lets them manipulate unseen forces. Evidence for this view includes the fact that magical ability often manifests suddenly in childhood, usually between ages 7 and 11. Before training, these bursts are chaotic: accidental levitation, exploding dishes, animals obeying unusual commands. Such events feel less like deliberate spellcraft and more like instincts, raw reflexes of a faculty still learning itself. If magic is evolutionary, it suggests that the wizarding and muggle worlds were never separate species, only divergent paths. Wizards evolved to interact with the unseen, while muggles turned to tools, machines, and science. Two solutions to the same question: how to survive in a changing world. Yet this explanation leaves unanswered the deeper mystery: what are wizards interacting with? Evolution may explain how, but not what. What substance or force is being manipulated? The elemental theory. The elementalists argue that magic is not within wizards but around them, a natural current like wind or tide. Wizards are simply those attuned enough to harness it. They compare magic to electricity, always present, flowing invisibly, but only accessible to those who know how to channel it. In this framework, spells are not inventions, but keys, unlocking specific pathways in the current. Wands act as conductors, focusing what would otherwise disperse. Charms and enchantments are ripples in the great sea of magical energy, shaped into patterns by human will. Ancient civilizations seem to accept this view. Egyptian monuments aligned to stars, Sumerian ziggurats channeling constellations, Celtic stone circles pulsing at solstices, all treated magic as a force embedded in earth and sky. Wizards, then, were mediators, translators between humanity and cosmos. This theory lends itself to awe, but also to dread. For if magic is environmental, it can fade. What if the current weakens? What if humanity drains it, as surely as it drains rivers and forests? Some fear that the slow decline of magical strength in modern families hints at depletion, magic ebbing from the world itself. The divine gift, another strand, older and more poetic, insists that magic was never discovered but given. In Norse tales, Odin gifted runes to humankind. In Greek myth, gods walked among mortals, bestowing powers. In Hebrew legend, angels taught forbidden arts. These myths, scattered across cultures, share a theme: the bestowal of power by beings beyond ordinary reach. Wizards who subscribe to this view see themselves as inheritors of divine covenant. Magic is not a tool, but a sacred trust, one that carries moral weight. To abuse it is to betray its origin. Yet such beliefs invite troubling questions. If magic was gifted, by whom and why? Were humans chosen to wield it, or cursed to carry it? And if it was given once, could it be taken away? Accident and chaos. Some scholars dismiss all grand theories and argue for chaos. Magic, they say, is a cosmic accident, a side effect of creation. Just as lightning sparks from clouds or volcanoes erupt from fault lines, so too does magic bubble unpredictably from the universe. In this view, wizards are anomalies, lucky or unlucky enough to be born at the seams of reality. Their power is not divine, not evolutionary, not purposeful, just the random flowering of possibility. This perspective is bleak but freeing. It denies destiny, bloodline, or sacredness, placing wizards as part of the same chaotic world as everyone else. It also explains the inconsistency of magic, why spells sometimes fail, why certain enchantments collapse without reason. Magic is wild because the world is wild. The first sparks. Whatever the origin, myths of first magic abound. Some tales speak of a woman in the forest who whispered to wolves and made fire leap from her hands. She became the first witch, feared and worshipped by her tribe. Others tell of a child who sang to the moon, and the stars bent down to answer, teaching humanity its first incantation. In Africa, stories of Uagadu's founding suggest entire villages practicing wandless magic millennia before wands were invented, shaping stone and storm with bare gestures. In the East, dragons are said to have taught chosen humans the first lessons of elemental control, a bond that still echoes in Chinese magical practice. Are these myths or distorted memories of real pioneers? No one knows, but in each story lies the same theme: magic arriving suddenly, like flame on dry grass, altering humanity forever. The burden of origins. Why does the origin of magic matter? Practically, perhaps it does not. A witch with a wand does not need to know whether her power stems from genes, gods, or chaos to cast lumos. Yet the question shapes identity. To know where magic comes from is to know what it means to be wizard. If it is biological, then wizards are simply another branch of humanity, bound by blood and heredity. If it is elemental, then they are custodians of a fragile current, responsible for balance. If divine, then their power carries moral obligation. If chaotic, then they live with no destiny, only the raw chance of existence. Each possibility changes, not the spell but the soul behind it. The silence of the mysteries. The Department of Mysteries has, of course, sought answers. Rumors say entire wings of the department are devoted to the study of origin. Experiments with magical children, research into squib physiology, attempts to trace ley line patterns back to a point of emergence. None of these have yielded definitive results. Some claim the unspeakables have artifacts far older than any pyramid or rune, objects humming with magic, yet predating human civilization. Others whisper of attempts to breed magic into muggles, or to strip it away from wizards, projects abandoned for ethical horror. The unspeakables themselves remain silent. Perhaps they know more than they say. Perhaps silence is their only honest answer. For some mysteries are not solved, they are endured. Closing reflection. The origins of magic remain veiled, a riddle without resolution. Is it gene, gift, element, accident? Perhaps all, perhaps none. Perhaps the question itself is flawed, seeking linear cause where only mystery exists. What is certain is this: magic is older than schools, older than laws, older than memory. It has burned in forests, deserts, mountains, and ruins, always flickering at the edge of human grasp. It is not an invention, nor entirely a birthright. It is simply there, waiting. And maybe that is the truest answer. Magic did not begin. Magic is eternal, pervasive, woven into the bones of the world. Wizards are merely those who listen closely enough to hear its song. The wizarding world is not built only from what we know, but also from the vast spaces of what we do not. Its allure lies not merely in spells and creatures, but in the mysteries that linger. Rooms unopened, ruins undeciphered, questions unanswered. Each generation feels the same pull, to peer closer, to reach into the mist, and to wonder what waits beyond. Perhaps it is not the answers, but the unanswered questions themselves that keep this world alive, and perhaps that is the truest magic of all. Slow down now. Let your body sink a little deeper into where you are, whether it is a chair, a bed, or the quiet embrace of night itself. Breathe gently, each inhale like the opening of a page, each exhale like the closing of a chapter. You have walked through histories, through names and dates and places alive with detail. But here, we will leave the lists and the lines behind. Here, the world narrows to a single path, and the pace softens to match the steady rhythm of your breath. Close your eyes, if you wish. Let the rest of the room fade. The screen, the light, the distractions. They can all wait. For now, only the voice remains. Imagine a staircase, stone, spiraling downward into earth. With every step you take, the sounds of the surface fade. No chatter, no rush, no echo of the day, only silence, folding around you like heavy velvet. The walls glisten faintly, polished by hands long gone. Torches flicker, though no one has lit them in centuries. The air smells faintly of dust and candle smoke, a mixture of memory and absence. One turn, then another. The spiral continues, each step heavier, slower, grounding you more deeply into stillness. You feel your heartbeat settling. You feel time loosening its grip, stretching into a softer rhythm. At the bottom rests a door, oak reinforced with iron bands, its surface scarred with marks you cannot quite read. The handle is cold under your fingertips, smooth with age. You pause here, one breath, two breaths. The silence thickens. Then slowly, you push the door open. Night in Hogsmeade. A current of cold air greets you, sharp, crisp, yet carrying with it the faint sweetness of winter pine. You step into the village of Hogsmeade, cloaked in snow. It is deep night, when the streets are empty, when even the taverns have gone silent. Every rooftop, every fence post, glimmers under the weight of white. Lanterns sway gently, suspended above cobbled streets. Their flames glow with halos that blur in the drifting snow. Each flake descends slowly, lazily, as though reluctant to land. Listen, the world is quieter here. You hear the crunch of your boots pressing into untouched snow. You hear the whisper of wind winding between chimneys. From somewhere unseen, the hollow call of a raven echoes once, then fades. You smell wood smoke curling up from chimneys, a smell of warmth and survival, of fires burning inside shuttered homes. Beneath it lingers something older, the mineral tang of stone, the faint must of old parchment, as though the air itself remembers centuries of stories told here. You pause outside the Three Broomsticks, The windows glow faintly with golden light. Once, laughter poured from this place. Tonight, only silence drifts through the glass. For the briefest moment, you imagine you see movement within, a glass tipping, a shadow shifting. But when you blink, the window is empty again. Farther ahead, the road narrows. Shops stand closed. Honeydukes with its candy jars hidden in darkness. Zonko's shuttered tight. The post office locked. Snow has drifted across their thresholds, covering the signs of daily life. The world has tucked itself to sleep. The silence deepens as you pass beyond the last cluster of homes. The street bends, leading you toward open ground. A single lantern hangs from a crooked post, its flame trembling low. Beyond it, the path lies untouched, a ribbon of snow stretching forward into fog. Look back once. The village glows faintly behind you, like an island of memory. Then let it go. Ahead, the mist thickens, swallowing sound. The road feels less like stone now, more like dream. And there, just barely, you glimpse the silhouette of Hogwarts. Towers rising like watchmen, their windows glittering faintly. But you do not walk there tonight. The journey curves elsewhere. Step forward. The lantern fades. The castle dissolves into mist, and before you appears another door, arched, carved from stone, with no handle, no keyhole, only a seam waiting in silence. You raise your hand. The stone sighs apart, parting like smoke, and you step through. The Department of Mysteries. The air changes. You are underground again, yet deeper than any cellar or chamber. The walls are made of black stone, polished to mirror-like sheen. When you pass, you glimpse your reflection, not quite your own, but something stretched, distorted, as though the stone remembers other faces too. The corridor opens into a vast circular chamber. The floor shines like black glass, flawless, endless. All around the walls are doors, identical, silent, waiting. The chamber begins to turn, slowly, soundlessly. The walls rotate until you no longer know which door you entered by. The ground remains still beneath you, but everything else glides around, rearranging. You stand at the center, steady, as though the world itself shifts to confuse you. And then it stops. You choose a door, the hall of time. The hinges do not creak. The door opens like a breath, and you step into a chamber alive with ticking. Clocks hover in midair. Toll, narrow, round, square, carved from brass and wood and crystal. Some tick softly, each second dripping like water. Others whirl with frantic speed, their hands spinning too fast to follow. Still others are frozen, motionless, as though time has forgotten them. Hourglasses float upside down, grains spilling upward. One overturns itself, again and again, trapped in endless cycle. In the center of the room, a great bell jar glows faintly. Within it, a hummingbird beats its wings. It ages in a rush of feathers, then shrinks back to youth, then ages again, caught in the loop of eternity. The air vibrates. You feel it in your skin, in your ribs, in the deep pulse of your chest. Every heartbeat feels like it belongs not to you, but to the room. You reach toward a clock. Its face tilts to meet you. For one sharp moment, you feel centuries crash into your body, the weight of ages lived, of futures waiting. The sensation passes like lightning, leaving behind a hollow ache, like remembering a dream. Time here is not a river. It is a labyrinth, and you are only a visitor. You step back. The hummingbird flickers, suspended between two instants. You bow your head to it, and you leave. The hall of death. The next door opens into stillness, deeper than silence. At the center rises an arch of stone, older than memory. Across it hangs a veil of the thinnest fabric, swaying as if stirred by an unseen wind. You stand still, and you listen. The whispers come slowly, not loud, not sharp, but endless. Dozens, hundreds, perhaps thousands of voices, each speaking at once, each too quiet to separate. They curl around your ears, pulling at your attention. You cannot catch their words, but you know they are words. The air is colder here, heavy, as though filled with all the endings of all the lives that have passed through. You step closer. The whispers grow louder. They do not sound frightening. They sound familiar. One voice, for a moment, feels like it calls your name. Another reminds you of laughter you once knew. You want to part the veil. You want to see, but you do not. You stand, listening. The veil ripples. The voices rise, then fall. They are not asking. They are not warning. They are simply there, waiting. You bow once in respect, and you turn away. The Hall of Love. The third door glows faintly, even before you touch it. Inside, the air is warmer. Golden light spills from nowhere and everywhere, soft as dawn. The air carries fragrance, not one but many, layered fresh bread, summer grass, the perfume of a flower long forgotten, the smell of someone you once held close. Shapes shimmer at the edges of the room, two hands clasping, a mother's arms cradling a child, friends laughing in the flicker of firelight. They are not solid. They are memories sculpted from light, flickering, but real enough to make your chest ache. You stand there, and you feel it, not as spell, not as charm, but as force. Love, simple and vast, binding everything, stronger than time, stronger than death. It does not need to speak. It does not need to explain. It is here, and that is enough. You close your eyes. The warmth lingers, long after you step away. Back in the circular chamber, the doors wait silently, but something has changed. You carry the hum of time, the whispers of death, the warmth of love. The chamber fades. The corridor returns. You walk onward, deeper still. Reflections on deeper mysteries. The corridor stretches on, but it no longer feels like stone. The edges blur. The floor softens. Soon, you are walking not on ground, but on mist itself. Each step dissolving as soon as it is taken. The walls dissolve into shifting shadows. The air thins, carrying not sound but thought. You realize you are no longer moving through a place, but through a question. And the questions gather around you like companions. Where did magic begin? Was it born in the first spark of fire that humankind learned to kindle? Was it written into the bones of the earth, waiting to be awakened? Or did it fall from the stars, drifting into the blood of a few chosen beings? The mist curls at your feet, like parchment unrolled, as if every civilization tried once to write the answer. Ancient Egypt, with its death curses carved into tombs. Mesopotamia, with runes pressed into clay tablets. The Celts raising stones in circles, aligned with the solstice. Each fragment whispers, "We knew something once. We held a piece of the truth." But those truths crumbled. Empires fell. Languages died. Fires went out. And the knowledge dissolved into air. You walk deeper, and the questions change. Was magic a gift? A deliberate bestowal from gods or forces beyond comprehension? Were wizards chosen, set apart, guardians of a sacred trust? If so, why the silence? Why the secrecy? Why the endless hiding, as though ashamed of what was given? Or was it accident? Chaos spilling into human veins by mistake, leaving behind not a destiny, but a burden. The mist thickens. Shapes drift in and out, like half-seen statues. Some are human, some are not. Their outlines shift too quickly to follow. You sense their gaze, but not their intent. The silence of the unspeakables hangs here as well, heavy and deliberate. For centuries they have studied these same questions, descending into chambers hidden even from most wizards. They have asked, can magic be traced, bred, mapped like a gene? Can it be stripped away, replicated, distilled into potion or artifact? And every experiment ends the same way, more silence. Perhaps the question itself is flawed. Perhaps magic did not begin. Perhaps magic simply is. Eternal, unmeasured, like the air you breathe. You pause. The mist curls higher, brushing your face. The questions do not demand answers. They simply move with you, like tides. You breathe in. You breathe out. And you walk on. The silent door. At last, the mist parts. You find yourself standing before a door. Unlike the oak you touched at the beginning, unlike the stone you passed through in Hogsmeade, unlike the endless circle of the Department of Mysteries, this door has no hinges, no handle, no lock. It is made of mist itself, shifting, trembling, as though breathing slowly in front of you. Its surface is not flat, but alive, curling in and out like smoke. You step closer. The silence here is deeper than any you have heard. It is not the silence of a sleeping village, not the silence of a sealed chamber. It is older, wider, as though the entire world has paused. You raise your hand, but you do not touch. Because you cannot open this door. No one can. It is not a threshold meant to be crossed. It is a presence meant to be acknowledged. You stand before it, and you listen. What you hear is not sound, but weight, a sense of vastness, of depth, without end. It presses gently against you, not crushing, not frightening, but infinite. And in that infinite quiet, you feel something. Not answers, not revelations, but the certainty that questions themselves are enough. The door sways once, softly, like a curtain stirred by breath. For a moment, you think it will part, that you will glimpse what lies beyond. But then, it stills again. The mist folds inward. The silence deepens. And you realize the truth. You do not need to open it. Standing here is enough. Breathing here is enough. Listening here is enough. You bow your head. The mist stirs once more, as if in acknowledgement. Then, gently, you step back. Closing stillness. The world shifts, The mist curls around you, lifting you, carrying you upward. Like tide water, the corridor dissolves. The black stone fades. The veil of Hogsmeade, the chambers of time, death, love, the questions of the ancients. All of it softens into memory. You rise slowly, weightless. You feel the heaviness of silence lingering in your chest, not as burden, but as calm. When the mist clears, you are standing in stillness once more. Nothing presses you now. No door waits. Only the quiet echo of what you have seen. And as you breathe, you understand the wizarding world is not made only of the known, not only of spells catalogued, creatures classified, histories written. It is also built from what is absent, from the gaps, the silences, the unanswered, from what lies just beyond reach. The mysteries are not flaws. They are not failures. They are the heartbeat of the world itself. Without them, the fabric of magic would fall still. And so each generation feels the same pull to search, to question, to press against the fog. Not always to succeed, but simply to try. To place a hand on the silent door and to wonder. You exhale slowly. The voice fades. The music dims. Only the faint hush of wind remains, whispering through a corridor you will not see again tonight. Perhaps you will return. Perhaps you will not. But the door will wait. Always in silence. And perhaps this is the truest magic of all, that it is not the answers, but the unanswered questions that keep the world alive. Perhaps the wizarding world is not only found in books. Perhaps it stands right beside you, hidden beneath the quiet magic of the ordinary. A flicker in the corner of your vision, a shadow that lingers just a moment too long. When the snow falls again, and the wind carries whispers through empty streets, you might feel it. Come back for the next journey. There are more places waiting, just beyond the veil.